Faith. We all know that washing your hands is the best way to stop germs from spreading, but what about drying them?
Well, scientists have found that the bacterial count close to jet air dryers was 27 times higher than around towel dispensers, and they say it's because they blow bugs back into the air.
So we've been asking people what they thought was the most hygienic way to dry their hands.
You think they're more cleaner because you don't have to touch anything?
The water somewhere sprays out, doesn't it? It's like if you don't put the toilet down on the lid and flush, it all splashes out.
I just felt when you're getting the paper towels, people would touch it more.
Yeah.
And it's quite easier.
It makes sense, doesn't it? Like, because they're blowing rather than just absorbing the water.
I thought the manufacturer made those to ensure that bacteria wouldn't be spread as much.
What's the point in hand drying your hands if it's going to be dirty again? Do you know what I mean?
90% of them don't work anyway, so it's all cold air anyway. So
Nowhere has paper towels anymore. It's more those little ones that you put your hands in.
Well, I've always been a paper towel guy anyway. I didn't know there was an actual preference. I thought I was just a little bit of a weirdo.
always find a good pair of trousers did the trick.
Well, we can talk now to Mark Wilcox, who is a Professor of Medical Microbiology at Leeds University. Good morning to you, Mark. Just explain a bit about how you've worked this out, that dryers are worse than paper towels.
Well, we were interested in actually looking at the difference in how many bacteria were spread into the air once you dry your hands either with paper towels or with different sorts of electric air dryers. And I mean, the first observation I made was outside of the laboratory setting. Was just when I was using one of these jet air dryers, I could actually feel spots hitting my face during the hand drying. And sure enough, if you count the number of bacteria, first of all we coat the hands in a large number of bacteria to mimic poorly washed hands. And if you count the number of bacteria in the air over a 15-minute period, then you can see much larger numbers of bacteria, about 27 times more bacteria released into the air when you're using a jet air dryer as compared with paper towels. And the warm air dryers are somewhere in between. They're about 4 to 6 times more bacteria than associated with the paper towel use.
And Mark, what do you mean by poorly washed hands?
Well, the numbers of bacteria we use to mimic poorly washed hands was those have been measured on people who have not washed their hands properly after using toilets.
Your hands properly. So what's washing your hands properly then? Because surely washing your hands at all, what's the difference between not properly and properly?
Well, you know, if you watch what happens in washrooms, you know, when you're visiting, sometimes you see people just wafting their hands underneath the tap and wetting them and thinking that equates to washing them. It certainly doesn't. And the harder you wash your hands, and you know, you're taught in hospitals, and I spend some of my time working in hospitals, that it takes about 30 seconds to wash your hands properly, washing all the fingers and the tips of your fingers, the clefts in between your fingers. And if you don't do it like that properly, then you end up with bacteria collecting in those places which don't meet the soap and the water. And what we were trying to do was to mimic, as I say, poorly washed hands, and sure enough, we find this large difference in the number of bacteria released.
And when we talk about bacteria, the words obviously can seem quite scary, but what type of bacteria are we talking about here?
Well, if you've been to the toilet, you know, then we're talking about bacteria that are associated with, you know, with those parts of your body, and that some of those can cause infections. It's not really a good idea to spread those around into the air. They also may be more antibiotic resistant. And you know, it's just a principle of infection control that you'd ideally like to keep bacteria from moving around. I mean, what we haven't demonstrated is that this is doing harm. Rather, we've demonstrated the potential for bacteria to spread. And from an infection control point of view, spreading bacteria is a bit of a no-no.
And we heard one of the people we spoke to in the Vox Pops there saying it's you know, a good pair of trousers will do the job. How does washing your hands, drying your hands on your trousers compare to the rest of it?
Yeah, that's a no-no, because probably what you do then is you will contaminate, because there will be bacteria left on your hands anyway. Part of the act of drying is to remove the bacteria. So if you wipe them onto your trousers, onto your jacket, you'll leave bacteria on there, so they become gradually more contaminated. The alternative, of course, is that you pick up bacteria that are already on your trousers or your jacket, and you go out of the washroom with contaminated hands.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's Professor Mark Wilcox there.